Hello. And now I see you, Mr. John.
Ah, there we go. Cool.
Ooh, it's like Instagram just acts like, strange
Yes,
sometimes, and it just
crazy.
irks me. It really
Yes.
irks me.
Yeah,
I
same
hope
here.
you're having a blessed Sunday. Thank you, everybody who is coming on here. I hope you guys are having a blessed Sunday. Happy Sunday. Those of you who are coming on, please welcome legendary singer who is known as a legendary singer who is famously known for his hit single So Fine, Howard Johnson.
Good evening,
Ha-
everybody in the Big Apple and everywhere. What's up?
Uh, I'm in the Big Apple too, and that's where I'm from.
Ah, there you go. There you go.
Yeah.
I'll be in
Mhm.
New York next week.
Mhm. Yes, on
Yeah,
Friday, when Lilo Thomas, Melba Moore, The System, Alexander O'Neill. Hopefully, I'm able to make it. It'll be a
oh, cool, cool.
miracle. Yeah.
There you
Hmm.
go.
Yeah.
Miracles happen
Yeah.
every day.
Yes. Amen. Amen.
Yes.
Now let's get
Yeah, I lived in New
started.
York.
Let's get started.
Okay.
Okay. Um, you started off on with the music business the duo Niteflyte with Sandy. Tell us some about the duo and your best memories in being in the group.
Oh wow. Well, Miami was a pretty exciting place in the late 70s. Obviously, I grew up there, having a lot of Cuban friends and playing percussions and singing in groups and, singing in college. And it was like the beginning of the whole Miami Vice kind of vibe, what was going on in Miami at that particular time. And it's so funny because, like, Miami Vice, those two guys, we both drove the same kind of cars. Sandy had a Porsche and I had a Ferrari, so we were having big fun in Miami during that time. It was a great place to be. The weather was a lot like it is here in California, but with humidity. So it was a great place and a great time to be there.
Uh-huh. And both Miami and like California, they hot places.
Yes,
Mhm.
yes, yes,
Mhm.
yes. With the islands and stuff, Jamaica, Nassau, Cuba. I mean, we used to have a lot of fun, taking speed boats and just having a great time. It was, and music wise, it was great too. You had KC and the Sunshine Band. You had Lil Beaver, Betty Wright, Kenny Lattimore, Bobby Caldwell. You had the Bee Gees that were cutting, Saturday night fever during that time. So it was a great time during then.
Yes, and speaking about those hot places, what was your favorite place to be at and why?
Wow. Miami had so many hot clubs then. The Scaramouche, which was in downtown Miami, the Limelight, which was in Hollywood, Florida. There were so many different discos because you remember during that period of time, it was real big with Donna Summer and the whole disco thing was happening pretty big, in Miami. And then with the salsa with, Cuban, music at the time. So, I can't say there's one favorite place because we had a great time every weekend,
And yeah, and doing the hot places is like you don't want to sit indoors. You just want to like go in the water, have some
Yes.
drinks.
Yes, there's a place Sandy and I used to go on Key Biscayne, and Key Biscayne is a little island in off of in Miami, where President Nixon used to live. And we used to go there and take our speedboat and be able to eat outside, eat seafood and stuff, and hop in the boat and, go to Miami Beach and different places. So it was a great atmosphere during that time.
Uh-huh. And speaking of Night Flight, tell us about the album that you guys put out.
That particular record was an amalgamation of, like, if you took Earth, Wind, and Fire and kind of mixed it a little bit with pop and R and B and a little Jamaican. It was an amalgamation of a lot of different things that were going on in
Mhm.
Miami at that time, and that album had a lot of big stars on it. Who's Who, David Sanborn on saxophone, Hamish Stewart from Average White Band singing background and playing guitar, Phyllis Hyman singing background, Steve Ferrone from Average White Band. So it was a great time, and great musicians, and a great time to be in Miami during that period of time.
Oh, wow. And speaking of Phyllis Hyman, God rest her soul, one of the most greatest voices in the business. How did she get the role to play to do background vocals for you and Sandy?
Well, that was how a part of the way that I was discovered. Phyllis Hyman's husband at the time was a guy named Larry Alexander, and Larry Alexander was the lead singer of Niteflyte, which was called Tornado at the time, and that's how I got the job, because he was leaving the group to manage her full time. So we were real good friends, and she was like a mentor to me. So it was like a
Mhm,
perfect situation for me that we were all friends to be able to have her on the record. We had the Brecker brothers. It was a lot of big stars on that record.
mhm. And on the Brecker Brothers, tell us about that group.
Wow. The Brecker brothers were, a lot of people didn't know, that were incredible horn players, instrumentalists from New York City. And we had a great time because Sandy, lived in New York at the time. I lived in Miami. So we had that connection with the New York, crew and the Miami crew. And then with the Average White Band, being friends with those guys.
Mm-hmm. And your group of Nightlife. Are you and Sandy planning to do a night flight? Are you and Sandy planning to do a reunion?
Of course.
Mhm. And,
Of
and
course.
when and when will this happen? Because the fans is I'm pretty sure they're waiting for it.
Well, Sandy
They're
lives in
ready.
Miami and I live here in California. So, we'll meet somewhere in the middle. I mean, I love going back to Miami all the time, and he likes coming out to California. So, probably the end of next year, we'll have something that's ready for everybody to hear.
Oh, okay. It's I'm pretty sure the fans are ready. I'm ready. I'm
We're
ready.
ready. It's time
Yes.
for it. It's
And
definitely
yes.
time.
And the reason for you and Sandy's split of a night flight is when you and him lived in different cities back at that time, that's when you put out the song So Fine.
Well, no, actually, I was still living in Miami during that time, and our creative goals kind of went in different directions at that particular time. And I was still in Miami because then um, I met Howard Smiley, and at Howard Smiley worked at TK Records, and at TK
Mhm.
Records we were, you know, partners doing that situation, and in those. Oh, hi. Is there any way that you can take up one spot so we can park in the other spot? Well, this truck's pretty big. I don't know how much. I'll move over a little bit. Okay. All right. So yeah, it was excuse me. I'm actually at another show with some friends of mine that are performing. So
Okay.
give me one second.
All right, no problem, Mr. Johnson.
Yeah. So our creative differences kind of came into play at that particular time, and I just chose to go, to a different situation, because when I found out that Kashif had done Evelyn King, but Love Come Down, it was like a perfect situation for me to be able to get in and capitalize on what Kashif was doing at that particular time.
Uh-huh. And another one of the best musicians who passed away back in 2016 wrote a lot of songs for
Oh
people.
yes, Absolutely. Yeah, he was an amazing friend. He was an amazing writer and producer, and we were actually working on some new stuff for a new album. And Kashif and I were best friends and talked almost every day. And I'm actually doing a Kashif tribute record that's called Younger Days with Bryant Morgan, who's was a good friend of Kashif and mine. That'll be out next year. So you're hearing it first here that there's going to be a Kashif tribute album that's called Younger Days by me and Brian Morgan.
Yeah. It would be amazing. It would be an amazing tribute.
Yeah, I think so. I think so. I'm really, really excited about, taking it to the next level. And, Kashif and I were working on stuff before he left us. And, I think it's going to be a great project.
hmm it sure will. It sure will. It sure will. And your main single, "So Fine."
Hmm.
Tell us the story behind that single. I know
Well,
you laughed because you said you didn't like it at first.
yeah, the first time I heard "So Fine," it wasn't so fine. It was a commercial for a cake like Twinkie, and it was called Jake Cakes. Jake Cakes taste great, and I was like, "Dude, that's stupid. I'm not singing about a stupid Twinkie cake."
Has
And
somebody forced you to sing that song, huh?
yeah,
Um,
and
they wanted you to do your own version of the song.
right. So when I came in the next day, that's when I heard, "Ooh, so fine, blow my mind, baby, baby, baby." And I was like, "Oh my God, that's the same song." And he went, "Yep, I just saved it for you." So I was very excited about that. And then the rest of the songs were just magical. Keeping Love New, This Is Heaven. I mean, it was a magical record. It was a magical time.
Uh-huh. And speaking of "So Fine," the video, I know it shows you like, performing and all the ladies are like dancing with you, Mr. Johnson. When did that video take place?
That video took place in the summer of 1982 because on the lot, A&M had a big lot in Hollywood off of La Brea. And on that same piece of property was the stage that they shot the Soul Train show every week. So Don Cornelius saw me in the parking lot one day and he says, "Man, why aren't you on my show?" And I was like, "Well, you never invited me on the show." So they invited me on to the show. And then 2 weeks later, I wanted to do my own version of the video, and I was friends with all of the people from Soul Train. So that's why that video looks like Soul Train number two.
So
It's because
basically,
they're
like,
all friends of
the
mine.
dancers that were in that video were from the Soul Train
Yes.
dance floor.
Every
Oh,
one
okay.
of them. Yes, yes.
Okay.
And they're still good friends of mine to this day. So I'm really proud to, call those guys my friend.
Uh-huh. And like, tell us about like, your best moments performing live when you started your solo career, Mr. Johnson.
Wow. Um this is so ironic that where I'm performing next week at the Westbury in New York, I performed my first show I did in New York at Westbury. I was opening up for Kool and the Gang and Gladys Knight. And
Mhm.
they told me that I was going to get initiated that night. And what they meant by initiated was they were going to turn some of my equipment off while I was performing. And they turned off all the electricity with the exception of the drums and my microphone. So everything went dead except for my voice and the drummer. And I just says, "Ladies and gentlemen, I apologize for the technical difficulties." And I started to sing "A House Is Not a Home" a cappella, and the crowd went crazy. And Gladys Knight came down, bouquet. roses to give to me, and then I went into So Fine, and people went crazy. So that is probably one of the biggest highlights of my life is performing at the Westbury, and to be coming back there 41 years later is really, a great thing for me, an honor to be back there again.
Because when fans attend a showcase and when there's technical difficulty going on, they just get pissed. It's like
Oh
you
yeah, of
just get some that would
course,
just
yeah,
be mumbling under their breath. We got those with big mouths that be like, oh, I paid a lot for this and I came to this.
yes,
But when you
absolutely,
just start singing a cappella, when people snapping their fingers, clapping their hands,
yeah,
that's an epic moment.
yes. It is. Yes, it is. And that's why I always, when I give advice to young people, is to be always prepared, because you never know what's going to happen. And if I didn't have the foundation that I had with music to be able to do something else and having the versatility, I wouldn't have been able to do that. I would have had to wait until the
Hmm.
electricity had come back on, or if they had turned it back on. But
Hmm.
they turned it back on after I did A House Is Not a Home, and Gladys Knight
Yeah,
came
by
down. They were
themselves.
like, "Oh my God, we got to give him his props." And then we were real good friends, and real good friends to this day with Robert, from Kool and the Gang.
Oh, yeah. Speaking of Mr. Robert Bell,
Yes,
you know,
yeah,
he's just looking good as he ages, and
right.
my sincerest condolences
Same
goes
here.
out to the drummer
Yeah, George.
recently passed away.
Yeah, he was a good friend of mine. We toured a lot together, so he'll truly be missed. Truly.
Yeah, yes. And speaking of the single "A House Is Not a Home" by the Dells, have you ever had a connection with those men?
Oh yeah, definitely. Well, the house is not a home, not the one that's in the Five Heartbeats, but I have a relationship with the Dells, and I had a relationship with Luther Vandross, because that's the one that I sung live. Was, a chair is still a chair,
Yeah.
even when there's no one. That's the one that I sung at that show. So yeah, I have a relationship with the Dells, and I have, a relationship. I had a relationship with Luther.
Hmm. Yeah. And your single "Keeping Love New." Was you in a relationship when you wrote that song?
No, that song was actually written by Kashif.
Oh,
Yeah,
okay.
that song was done entirely by Kashif, Paul Lawrence, and Maury Brown. That whole project.
Hmm. And your second album that you put out, I know there stories behind a few songs. It's like you got a lot to learn. Older girl, you was attracted to an a woman when you went to the club, huh? When you
Yeah,
wrote that song.
definitely, definitely. Growing up in Miami, the darker your skin complexion were, the lighter the girls were that liked you, and there was always older, women that liked me because I was dark complected during that particular time, and it was just a very exciting time. And of course, it influenced every song that was on that record.
Hmm. And your other single, you got a lot. What, you pissed off with somebody, or you just got you were just wanted to tell her like it is.
Well, life, music, and art imitates life. So yeah,
Uh-huh.
all of those things have to
Yeah.
do with the things that I was going through at the time. And the song was really more about me, that I needed a lot to learn, because you being exposed to a lot of different things and a lot of different people, a lot of different girls and women and stuff at the time. It was like, man, I was having to learn real fast, what I needed to do in life to be able to survive and be able to get past being a celebrity.
Yeah. And that's a statement. It's like like you just have to say it in a calm way, in a harsh way. You've got a lot to learn. When certain things that you didn't learn when you was a little kid,
Yes.
and you grown up, you got a lot to learn.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
because most people when they're young, they didn't know learn the basic things in life.
Right.
So they're learning it as they growing.
Yeah. it's but it's a different thing in the world of being in entertainment, because sometimes you're exposed to something that you would never be exposed to just being a common guy, working
Yeah.
9 to 5 a regular job. And girls, I mean, it was money, the different way of living, houses, cars. I really learned a lot during that period of time, and I was fortunate enough to not get caught up into drugs and drinking and all of the crazy things that come along with that lifestyle. So
And yeah, it's like, back in those days, it's like, good living represented a big house, cars,
yeah,
you traveling,
absolutely.
get a woman. I'm not saying that you was getting all the women. And even though you put out a single so fine,
Well,
and like, all the fine women out there, like, got up and started jamming to the song.
yes, but it was a difficult period. As much as people think, how wonderful life is, it was a very difficult time, because, I mean, So Fine really encapsulates what every man, what every man wants to say to every woman, and that's how women took it. It was like, yo, you made that song about me, didn't you? And it was like,
It was just
yeah,
for
I
fun.
guess so.
Uh-huh. And yeah, and like, I do agree with you, Mr. Howard. Like during those times, it was like, a very difficult time, especially like, with musicians that were signed to record labels. It's like, they were going through hard times, but like, you guys overcame your biggest obstacles. And
Yes,
there's a story to every musician, every record label.
absolutely, absolutely. And I just thank God for having the parents that I did, to give me the foundation that I did have, that I still hold those values to this day. Because I grew up very religious. My parents were very religious, so I was always respectful, and still very respectful of women. And and it's stuck with me, and it kind of kept me in this place of calm, and just being respectful.
Yeah, and before like you started your music career, you just had to like go to the house of the Lord and praise and like praise the Lord, thank Him like
Absolutely.
for allowing you to see another week,
Absolutely.
and like He opened the doors for you. It's like, hey,
Yes. Yes. So
um,
yeah, like I said, I'm
yeah,
I'm I'm still thankful, to this day. I'm a Buddhist, so I practice chanting, I do yoga, I'm a yogi. So, my meditation and stuff, and being healthy, and trying to give back, because that's what's important, to being able to give back. That's what's really important to me.
and yeah, because once you put God first, in in everything, your health comes second. Because there are legendary singers that are dying left and right. Many of the great voices
Absolutely.
are due to like a lot of health issues. And
Absolutely.
like, that's the one thing has like, us has like, African Americans here in the United States.
Yes.
We gotta watch our
A-
health, and we
Absolutely.
gotta watch on what we put in our body.
Absolutely. I'm a vegan, so I'm constantly, concerned about what goes in my body. I work out 6 days a week, and a lot of people that do follow me here on Instagram see me out running and hiking with my dogs and working out. So, yeah, those things are very important, and I try not to be very preachy to people to tell them about that. But your health is, very important, and if you don't take care of it, it won't take care of you. So,
And yeah, and like even if you don't got anything to do like during the day, just like wake up early and in the morning, just run like on miles. Those of you who are on here who are at a certain age,
right.
just like run miles, drink a
Yeah.
lot of water, eat fruits and vegetables.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely.
Okay, and like going back to music, your 1985 album, Division. Tell us about that album and the story behind it.
I was friends with Jimmy Jam and Terry Lewis, because I was living in Minnesota at the time, and I just took out the time to say, "Hey, man, I need to do a record with you guys." And John McClain was the executive at A&M, and he says, "Well, if you can get them to do it, we'll pay for it." And it just kicked things to another level, and that's when I got a chance to meet Prince and all of those guys from the time. And I lived in Minnesota at the time, and it was a great record. And one of the stories is one night I was in the studio working with Jimmy and Terry, and the vibe just wasn't there. I wasn't getting the vibe or whatever, and they says, "Well, come with us." And they took me over to Avenue One, which was Prince's club. And oh my God, they didn't know that I could dance the way that I can dance. And they saw me moonwalking and all the girls running out there because I already had the hit with So Fine. And when I came back to the studio, I was so fired up. And they says, that's the Howard Johnson that we want. And that's when I got the other hit called Stand Up that, I had wrote with Jerry Knight that was produced by, Monty Moore. You know what I mean? And that was that same night that, I did
Uh,
that song with them after going to Prince's Club and meeting him.
yeah.
And I was just so fired up. So those things are so important, having those kinds of relationships and having great producers, finding that special moment to be able to get you to elevate and dig a little deeper.
Yes, yes. And speaking of Jimmy Jam and Terry Lewis, it's like, those guys never disappoint a musician or
No,
artist.
no,
They
they
know when
don't.
to take them
Yeah.
to perform. And speaking of Jimmy Jam and Terry Lewis, and they were members of the time. And like,
Yes.
it had Morris Day, Jerome
Yes.
Benton, and Morris Day, at the time they were discovered by Prince.
Yes. Yes.
God rest his
I did
soul.
some shows. I did some shows with the time not too long ago at Mars Day and those guys. So yeah, we're all still friends.
Yeah, and let me tell you something. Morris Day has been like, moving and grooving,
Yeah.
it's like, for years, and he still got the moves.
Yeah. Yeah.
Mhm.
Yes. Thank God for that. Yes, indeed.
Yeah, yes, yes. And like, Regis Branson, you put out a duo album with him
Yes.
called Johnson and
Yes.
Branson.
Yes.
What was the purpose of that album, and like, you putting out a duet album with
Well,
Regis?
what happened was A&M had changed all of their management, so everyone that had anything to do with the artists during that time, they were getting rid of those artists. So I was getting ready to be kicked off of A&M, and I was living in New York, between New York and California at the time. And I went and I heard Regis at a club called Leviticus in New York. And I says, "Man, we need to do some work together." And we just got together and start writing songs, and that kept me on A&M for 2 3 more years. And he's a great artist. He had written a lot of songs for Najee, did some stuff for GQ, so he was a great writer and singer in his own right. And then after that, then another regime came in to A&M and kicked a bunch of artists off, because you got to remember, on that same label, Jeffrey Osborne was on A&M, Keith Washington, Vesta Williams, Sting, Joan Amontrati. Oh, there was a lot of artists on A&M that they let go, because they had new management. So then I did another record on my label, um, with Johnson and Branson. So there's a record out, that's called Packed and Waiting by Johnson and Branson, that a lot of people never heard. And if they go to my website, howardjohnsonmusic.com, they'll be able to follow what my new shows are and some of the records that people have never heard. Being independent, it's you don't have that same machinery to make that happen. So
Yeah. Uh-huh. And during that time, that was the main issue, like, with these record labels. Those musicians who are underrated or who are consistent is like, they have like, an impeccable voice, impeccable vocals. And like, they said that you're no longer in our record label. We have executives tell them that, and like,
oh
it
yeah.
sucks. Like they'll just be blackballed for no reason. Just be said because they said that this musician looks better than you,
Yeah.
this musician looks better than the other one, and like, they would just let them go for no reason.
Well, there's a reason. It may not be a good reason, but what happens is youth is the thing that they're looking for something new and fresh. But you have to understand how America is set up. America is set up with a fast food mentality. So when you're set up with a fast food mentality, what do you think's going to happen? You're going to get kicked to the curb after two, three records or whatever. So when I go overseas, I need bodyguards when I go overseas because they have a better appreciation for black music. And then when you look at the history of Miles Davis and Josephine Baker and all of these different jazz artists, where did they go? They went to Paris, they went to London, they went to Germany because they were appreciated. Like, look at the story of Marvin Gaye when Motown was talking about getting rid of Marvin Gaye, and he went to Belgium and came back with Sexual Healing, and then all of a sudden, oh, he's great, oh, he's wonderful. He was great and wonderful before he left. But that's the mentality of this country and the music industry. That's why I love the
Yeah.
independency that exists in doing your own music now. It's like now I don't have anybody standing over me telling me, well, you need a dance hit or you need a song like this or you need a song like somebody else's song. It's like, no, I can do whatever I want to do right now. So that's what it's about. And the thing that I'd like to pass on to the younger, people that are watching this, don't be afraid. Do
Yeah.
not be afraid. Be you. Whatever that is, be
Yes.
that. You
Um,
know?
don't pay attention to what other people think about you. God made you different. God made you who you are. Live your
Absolutely.
life.
Absolutely. So
Hmm.
but there is a but in this. You have to understand that in making those decisions, like when it rains, there's mud sometimes. You know what I mean? So when you make those kinds of decisions to do those kinds of things, you got to understand you're going to have haters. You're going to have people that don't like it for whatever reason. Well, it don't match
Yeah.
this, it don't match that.
Uh,
So that's why I said don't be afraid. Do what it
yeah.
is that's in your heart to do, and whatever consequences come with it, own it. Be
Yeah.
it.
Uh-huh. Yeah. You're gonna have haters. Not everybody in this world is gonna like you. Just live your life. Don't live your life for people.
Exactly. Exactly.
You always have to surround yourself with people who will uplift you, encourage you, clap for you every time you accomplish everything, and always have your back
Right.
whenever you're not around in the room.
Right. And to tell you the truth, even when
Yes,
the truth
yes.
hurts. You
Yeah,
know what I mean?
yeah,
Because
it's like you just can't pay attention to somebody who's gonna lie to you, because it's like that's a fake friend. You just gotta be real with somebody. The truth will
yes,
hurt,
yes,
but it will change you for the
absolutely.
good.
There's a saying that I say sometimes you gotta go through it to get through it. You know what I
Yes,
mean? It's like
exactly.
you look at a beautiful wooden table, a dining room table, and go, "Oh my God, that's beautiful! It's soft, it's silky, it's wonderful." Do you remember what it was? You know how rough the bark was, how
Yeah,
how difficult it was to cut it down, to trim the branches off of it. It had to go through a process to become
it
what
was
it became.
polished. It was polished very
Yes.
well.
Yes. So sometimes you have to go through that process to become what it is that you need to become. And sometimes it presents itself in a very harsh and difficult way. You know what I mean? And that's real. That's real. That is real.
Yes. Uh-huh. Exactly. Exactly. And um back in those days, we had executives that were not telling the truth.
Oh, of course not. Of course
Yeah,
not.
so
They
they would
they had
just
their ulterior
lie,
they had
be
ulterior
other
motives.
people
Yep.
ear, saying that this artist is this artist is that, making an artist who has like a tremendous voice in the business blackballed for
A-
no reason. And
Absolutely.
they were artists that were blackballed for some reason due to their attitude
Oh yeah, of
and how they were
course.
self-centered.
Absolutely. Absolutely. But you got to persevere. You got to eat right. You got to sleep right. You got to
Yeah.
live right. All of those things, and you'll persevere.
Hmm. Okay. And moving on, tell us about, your new single that you're gonna put out on Valentine's Day in 2024,
Well,
which is less
actually,
than 3 months from now.
actually, actually, I'm putting out the new album. It's called Compelled, and the new single is called "You're My Star," and it's kind of out right now. I released it in London about 6, 7 months ago, and it went straight to #1. But so it was kind of like a teaser, just to let people know that I was coming back, and I was still around or whatever. And it's just an amalgamation of a lot of things that have happened in my life over the past 10, 15, 20 years that people
That's what
haven't
that
heard from
album
me.
was about.
Oh, oh my God, it's about everything. I'm an open book, which a lot of entertainers and celebrities choose not to let people inside their lives. But in the compelled, on the compel record, if you listen to it very closely, you'll understand what my life is. You know, if you pay attention to the lyrics and what's being said. So, like I said, the new single off of that is a song that I did with Leon Silvers called "You're My Star."
And Leon Silver is like, oh my gosh, I can't believe this. I can't I forgot what group he's from. Leon
The
Silvers.
Silvers, from the
Yes,
Silvers.
yes,
Yes.
yes.
And he wrote a bunch of hits for the Whispers. I mean,
Mhm.
he's magical. Magical.
Yes, so I'll definitely be looking forward to that, Mr. Johnson. And
Yes.
before we get off here this evening, what is it that you have to say to the people on here?
Number one, don't be afraid. Number two, whatever it is that you're gonna be it. Be it. 100, 100. There's no such thing as 101, 110. When people always say I'm 150 in, no, 100 means everything. Be that. Be that. Own that. Stand up to it. Don't be afraid, and let the haters be hating. Let them hate by themselves. It's like arguing with somebody in making no sense. Don't waste your time. Just be true to yourself and be in it 100%, but don't be afraid of failure, because people are afraid of failure. No, what people are really afraid of is success, because they live in failure every day. And what I mean by failure is it being comfortable in your comfort zone. So, well, hey, I'm shy. I don't want to sing in front of anybody. So that's not failure. That's being in your comfort zone. So sometimes you need to get outside of your comfort zone and do and be, and just don't be afraid. But understand that there's a 180 to it, that there's consequences to everything that we do. Period.
Yes, yes, and this is the advice that people need to hear, Mr. Johnson, and I'm very thankful. And when I post this video, those anybody is like of any age, I hope they watch this video and they hear like your advice and your announcement.
Well, thank you very much. And it's one thing that I'll say, and a lot of people think that I'm a crazy person for saying it. I spend 3 to 4, maybe 5 hours a day on Instagram, TikTok, Facebook, all of the different social medias, answering questions, the simplest of questions. Write to me, DM me. I'll talk to anybody about this, because these things, I wish I had someone like me when I was coming up, because I didn't. I didn't do it on my own totally, but I wish I had someone giving me the advice. And that's why I was hurt so deeply when Phyllis left us, because Phyllis was like my mentor. I could call Phyllis at 3 o'clock in the morning. Phyllis, I'm feeling this way about the song, or I'm going through this, and what do you think I need to do about that? And she would give me that advice. So,
I know she wasn't somebody to play with.
no, she
She was about
wasn't.
her business.
No, she wasn't. No, she wasn't. So, to the people that are here and the people that'll watch this, You looking at me. IG, I'm right here. DM me. You want to talk about music? You want to talk about your life and how you're trying to get to it? Because we're all musicians. We're all artists. All of us have
Yes,
talents. They may not be singing or playing an instrument. You may be a painter. You may work on car stereos or whatever. And sometimes you need that person to give you that little push to go, you know what? That's jacked up what you're doing. That's jacked up what you're saying. Is that the foundation that your parents gave you? No, it isn't. Come on, get it together. Do what you need to do to be where you need to be. So I'm here. That's how I give back. That's what I'm here for.
yes, yes. And thank you for this second advice that you're giving to the people on here and what everybody else needs to hear.
It's a pleasure and it's an honor. And thank you so much. Anytime you want a brother to come on here and talk live, I'm here. Just
Yes,
call
and
me.
yes, and I have an announcement on to make myself, Mr. Johnson. Those of you who are in the tri-state area, New York City, New Jersey, Connecticut, Pennsylvania, or if y'all coming from a long distance from Florida, California, Michigan, Maryland, Washington D.C., make sure y'all stop at the Westbury Theater this Friday evening after Thanksgiving. Y'all drive turkeys don't want to miss at this event. Okay,
Yeah,
y'all
it's
drive
gonna be
turkeys don't want
fun.
to miss at this event. It's this Friday evening at the Westbury Theater. Howard Johnson, Melba Moore, Lilo Thomas, the system, and Alexander O'Neill. Make sure y'all get y'all tickets. Is going to be an event that is unforgettable.
It's definitely gonna be that. You're gonna see something you ain't never seen before. I guarantee.
Yes,
Thank you
yes.
so much. I appreciate it.
All right,
Everyone have a
Mr.
good
Johnson.
evening.
You have a blessed evening. Thank you so much. It was a
My
pleasure.
pleasure. Au revoir.